the age of 12, I took my hope of feathers and cast it in iron, armed it with sword and flame, and dared the world to call me into battle. I was born blind, a receiver of only two colors, dark and light. The subtlety of twilight I aspire to acquire in the fullness of an age not quite yet reached. Welcome to another awesome episode of Culture in Maine, York's weekly cultural showcase with all the best of art, music, poetry, and everything in between. This week, we have the fabulous percussion, world styles, instruments galore. It's amazing. Just sit back and enjoy, of Louis Woodyard, who also works with the ensembles Catch a Fire and assorted other neighborhood projects, which he'll tell you all about. We have the art of Rita King, who's affiliated with just about every art organization in the known universe, and definitely in York County. And then on top of that, we have the educator, the activist, the Pulitzer writing, which we'll tell you about in a little bit, poet Melissa Carl. And we have one of the awesome youth of York County, which we love to promote here. He's a skateboarder, a videographer, and a clothing designer. That would be Dakota. You'll meet them all coming up at you shortly. But let's start with the awesome percussion stylings of Louis Woodyard.
This particular piece came about during one of my African American history classes in school. It was informed of an event that I never knew about. You know, it was a rebellion by slaves in a place called Stono Junction. And what was so interesting about that is that, you know, although the rebellion failed, a lot of the practices against the slaves were eased at that time. I guess people, being people, realized, you know, that, you know, there's a lot of injustice, and people are people. And, you know when things go too far. Anyway, this came to my mind as one of my projects. I call this the Stono Rebellion. This song, my cousin and I wrote back in, I think it was 1979. We was a band called Sunburst, which was the first band I was in that actually did anything. We recorded a song for the then heavyweight champion of the world, Larry Holmes. But in this case, We share a certain philosophy. We believe in the 12 tribes of Israel. And this particular song is dedicated to the tribe of Judah. The talking drum. The quokka. You hear this a lot of samba music, Brazilian. Thank you.
I'm here with Louis Woodyard, the world percussionist and rhythm extraordinaire, who also happens to be a member of some of York's hugest ensembles. So he's going to tell us a little bit about all the stuff he's got going on, because I promise you, it's a lot. Okay, Louis. So not only are you a solo extraordinaire, but you actually also play with not one, but two groups that are playing in the county. Yes. Tell me about them.
Okay, first is the reggae group called Catch a Fire. They're based out of Harrisburg. Right. You know, I'm very attracted to reggae because I identify with what the message is. You know, for me, playing reggae is like a fulfillment, you know, of who I am.
What do you feel like reggae music really means to you? Like, what is the message that you want people to get from hearing, or that you think people get when they come and hear the reggae music?
I'm hoping they hear the one love message, you know, that we are all the same. Just, okay, I'm gonna break it down. One love, one God, one people, you know, and I truly believe that, you know, reggae, you know, overcomes what the so-called term of race, you know, and as we was talking earlier, there's no scientific proof for race, you know. We are all one people, different ethnicities. Did I say it right?
Yeah, okay. we are different ethnicities, right, but we are one species. We are one
species,
people.
The human race.
And so music that's your way of getting across your political or your spiritual message. Because
sometimes when I talk, you know, I'm a little extreme at times, you might know. And,
no.
And sometimes, you know, the beauty of music is it's universal. You know, me explaining something to a person they might not understand, but if you hear that rhythm and it goes in your soul, man, I'm like, okay, I can get it.
Right. Well, now your other project is completely different, though.
Right.
What's how you make the R&B transition?
Well, you know, I came up with the R&B. You know,
it's yours.
That's yours.
Louis Woodyard invented
Well,
R&B.
No, I didn't invent it, but I came up with it. You know, back in the day, it was the Drifters, the Four Tops, you know, the Temptations. Yeah, there you go. You know, and you know, I feel that too. When I first started playing music, it was R&B.
It was.
And funk.
It was.
And funk. You know, and that's a part of me too. I'm able to blend both of them. I love both of them so much.
You're just many people.
Well, let me tell you something. When I first came back to York, I played in rock bands. I played in rock bands in the 70s, and I learned so much. Those guys, you know, can I mention names?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, PCO, Philadelphia Children's Orchestra back in the day, Roy Smith, Craig Spector, John Leonard, and Mark Doberman, who has passed on. You know, I learned so much being with those guys, you know, because I was, you know, strictly R&B. But when I got with them, it was like, you know, progressive rock. All kind of different rhythms came about.
So now why did you start playing rock music? Was that just because that was what was here and that was what was available to you at the time? Or you were actually drawn to the sound when you started hearing it?
Well, I answered an ad in the paper and I met these guys and I was 12 years older than everybody else. And there was just so much energy there and such good music. You know, they were great musicians.
Right. Now, and you are, as you mentioned, a mature gentleman.
I try to be.
Who's out in the bar scene, who is out playing music, rocking it till 2 o'clock in the morning. How does it feel being out in this scene with a lot of people that are younger? Do they still connect with the experience that you have?
I think so. I really think so. But honestly, after the gig, I'm going home and go to bed.
That's the biggest difference now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
There is no more after party. I still play my heart out, but there's no after party.
It's time to go home. Yeah.
So now, how exactly, because you use some really unusual instruments, how did that come about rather than being on a traditional drum kit? Why, as a percussionist, did you choose such a different type of expression for your rhythm?
Well, I'm self-taught. and I tried to play the drums, but I didn't get that. Let me tell you the story. I started playing music in 1972 with a family group called Conclusions Part 2, right? And everybody else played an instrument. I was standing around doing nothing. But there was an old drum sitting there. It wasn't even a real drum. It was for decoration. All right, so I said, okay, I'm gonna do something. So I started playing on that. Later on, I bought one wooden conga, and it just grew from there. Beautiful. Like I said, I'm self-taught, but I try to listen to different. I'm on YouTube every day, listening to different rhythms.
Okay.
I haven't mastered all of them yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, I noticed you have a really strong influence from a lot of different cultures and countries. You're York born and bred. Yes. You're a traditional York guy. Mm-hmm. So have you traveled to these different places? Like, what made you say, I'm going to learn about the obscure music from Brazil, or I'm going to learn about different music from Africa? I mean, how do you pull all that together?
Well, I claim to be Afrocentric. And not just
claim to be.
I am. I'm Afrocentric, but that does not mean I dislike anything else.
So you like playing all different types of music because the different rhythms appeal to you? It's
educational, Plus, the drums, I relieve a lot of frustrations on the drums. I think that's why I stuck with it so long.
It's very physical, watching you move and play and strike. But it's your whole body that's playing that.
It's very spiritual to me. Get to the point. The drum, the conga was my form of rebellion. When I think about it, because I was at one time a member of the Black Panther Party, if I can say that.
Absolutely.
And once again, it was not a hate thing, it was just a political thing. I was trying to bring about a change to the world. A lot of people misunderstand that now. I don't want to talk about the new Black Panther Party.
Right.
I'm not that.
Right.
I'm not that,
But your intentions were, what was the vision that you had that eventually you started telling through your music?
When I realize it now, it was one love, one God, one people. And, I realized that it was a class thing. It's a class thing now. I have nothing against the rich man. Share the wealth. I read an article the other day where I realized that where they told me that there's enough money in the world for every American to live debt-free.
Indeed, there is.
And when I drum for those people who don't have.
The 98% that don't have the wealth that the 2% has.
Yes.
You're telling their story through your drums.
Yes, that's my intention.
Now, you have some pretty incredible special projects that are coming up this summer.
Yes.
So can you tell me about, let's talk about Take My Hand first, because that's a great community movement, and I'm super geeked to be part of that festival this year. So tell me about the Take My Hand project, the whole project.
The Take My Hand project is a nonprofit organization started by Yvonne Tassafasa and myself, and what we're about is promoting community unity and the arts and the cultures of all genres, if you will. And so September the 7th, we're having our second annual Take My Hand Project Cultural and Music Fest on Penn Park in the city of York, Pennsylvania. The time will be from 10 in the morning to 8 in the evening.
And it's a whole day, a mega day of everything, steel drums and poets all that. Music and
you.
I mean,
hopefully.
I mean, I'm just saying. But you will be there. Will you be there with the band?
Yes, I'll probably be both band. Well, it hasn't been decided yet, but it'll be music.
And
all day long.
Vendors, and community organizations.
Art. There will be djembes for sale because we have people who make the djembes, the good djembes.
Wow.
And they'll be for sale at good prices. Last year, it was nice. We could have did better planning But you know.
But you know what the best part about the Take My Hand movement for me is that it is grassroots. It is created by the community that it is meant to serve.
Yes.
And everybody involved is invested actively both in the product and the production of that product,
yes,
but also in the outcome.
Yes,
so there is a passion that is there, and there is a Facebook group that you can be a member of if you look up Take My Hand on Facebook.
Take My Hand Project, or if you want to look me up, Louis E. Woodyard Jr., I'm always posting something about what's going on, what I'm doing.
And what is the other project?
Now, the second thing is dear to my heart, really dear to my heart.
Right.
It would be the Sunburst Band reunion. After 30-something years, we're getting back together at the Days Inn, York, August 24th.
In the summertime.
Yes. It's a cabaret style, old school cabaret. If you're from York and you remember the old cabarets we used to have, it's going to be like that. So it's going to be a good time. You know, all the guys got together.
And tell people about the kind of music, the Sunburst Band. What can a Sunburst Band evening, what experience?
Well, we did original music. We did original music. We did the theme song for Larry Holmes, the former heavyweight boxer, champion of the world. We did his theme song, and that song took us some places, you know. And this is dear to my heart, man. I hope the community comes out and have a good time. That's what it's all about.
Well, I know we had a good time talking to you today.
Thank you, sister. I'm so glad that you invited me here.
I'm glad you came, and I know I will be at the Take My Hand Festival. I'll be at the reunion show.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Getting it in. We're going to have a good time, right?
Sure enough.
Thank you for sharing with us, Brother Louis. Thank you.
God bless.
The art on set today has definitely got to be one of my favorites, and it comes from one of my favorite local artists, Rita King. Okay, Rita, people can find you pretty much everywhere, is how that works.
For sure.
But your primary outlets now, you are with Parliament Art Collective, and we get a lot of buzz about the East King Street, King Square, and how that's really exploding. What's your place in that, in Parliament as an organization and as an artist? How do you connect with them?
Well, for the Parliament, I'm the gallery director is my official title. So I also serve on the board with the rest of the board of directors for the gallery.
Right.
And I do also allow myself the liberty of showing my own work sometimes.
Of course.
So that works out pretty well because I started as, you know, an artist for them, and then it just kind of grew into something a lot more.
Oh, they just decided to tap into the genius behind the genius.
I guess. Well, originally my title was community coordinator, and I was just like, that's not for me. That's not where I want to be at. So it morphed a little bit.
But now also you are in the fabulous Market View Arts building, which just not enough people have been inside Market View Arts to see the incredible stuff they've done with renovating that space and hanging the art there. How did you end up being their resident artist?
It's through York College. So Louis Appel is one of like the greatest men on earth and gives money to wonderful causes, York College in particular. So he donated a large amount of money to support a fellowship each year. So every year, one alumni from the art department will be chosen to take my place. I just happened to be the first one to get it. So I applied and they said, hey, we choose you. And
so now, and aside from actually living in the gorgeous apartment right there in Market View Arts, right there in the art space, what are some of the things that you do as part of this fellowship that you get to represent yourself as an artist?
Well, my main thing is painting, is my main job. So that's the majority of the hours that they request that I spend is on painting specifically. And then in general, I'm a liaison for the college to get more in contact with York City. So we just had a great event on First Friday where we bussed a bunch of the college students down and we threw an event, and the city donated some money to us. Kevin Schreiber was there.
Ooh,
and
city government.
It was wonderful. And
wonderfully supportive.
He was getting everybody hyped up about the city, and so it's getting rid of
Schreiber.
Yes, I know, right? We're very much trying to get rid of the stigma that the college has, or that has been impressed on the college students, that they shouldn't come downtown because it's dangerous. And we're trying to give them, hey, here's the places you should go because it's happening.
Right.
And
York City is an incredible place. It's an incredible destination, and whatever we can do to get people more connected to the great stuff that's happening there.
And that they can stay there they can stay here after college. They don't have to move back home with their parents,
Nice.
which we all know can be very detrimental to an artist, you know?
Yes, most definitely.
So if you can stay in the city, and then it works out much better.
So now you did go to York College to actually study art. So you are one of our rarer birds in that you are a traditionally trained artist, as well as, you know, an artist of feeling and passion and emotion. So how is it, like, what difference did that make for you actually going to school and being told and learning, this is what I want you to do, this is what I want you to create, this is how I want you to create it?
I think it made a huge difference, and I would totally speak to education as being important, even if you know you do start as self-taught, and plenty of the great artists were self-taught as well. So but the biggest thing for me was being able to like experiment, having that time where it's okay to experiment and fail, because that's what college is for. So you have mentors and you have people surrounding you and a community supporting you that you're paying for. So they're there for you.
Right. I'm paying you to be here for me. So
sure.
Do this.
I had an amazing college experience. By the end of college, I was like set up to be an artist, and I was ready to leave. I was pretty much completely self-motivated. I was working on all of my own projects. No one was telling me what to do by the end.
Okay.
But I think sometimes you need that guidance, especially if you're coming out of high school, 17, 18, like you probably need a little more guidance and so I would advocate. I love school.
But now one of your favorite pieces is actually here on set today, and it's a self-portrait of you. So, which has a pretty cool story. What is the story behind that self-portrait? Because that's an amazing piece.
I love that piece, and I will probably never sell it. It's probably just going to stay just for me, because I know a lot of people don't like it also. So I'm like, well, we'll see. But it's a very much transition piece for, I went through a lot of interesting medical developments, let's say.
I like that.
So just this past year. So I was doing all of this work about epilepsy and having seizures, and how that was taking an effect on me, and surgery that I had had, and all of these things. And so it started out in, I believe, July. I started doing that painting, and it was like a brain with some weird like rods in it. And then I got undiagnosed, I like to say, from this epilepsy. They said, hey, just kidding. Yeah, that's not what it is. So obviously that was really difficult. It was a huge, I stopped painting for like a month. It was just a huge curveball, and I just lost all of this identity. And so that painting began to reflect it. It became, it was very dark, and I just painted over the whole thing in red, and it stayed like that for another probably 3 or 4 months, because I just couldn't bear to look at it. I kept putting it away. And then I was finally able to break through that and re-transform myself and refine myself. And that painting shows all of that progression. So it's just very meaningful to me.
So now when you paint, because, and you know, I know that this is one of like the things that every artist hates to hear. They're like, well, abstract painting, like, do you just sort of splash the paint on it? Like, is it even really about anything?
Right.
And every artist I know is like, no, when you look at it, you feel the emotions coming through it, through the shape, through the color, through the intensity of it. What is coming across in your paintings? What stories are you trying to tell? And why have you chosen that particular format to tell them that way?
You know, that's a good question. I've always had trouble explaining that. It's very naturally when I paint, that's just what comes out. And usually I have to distract myself even so that I don't talk to myself. Exactly. If I overthink it, then I just kill it. But for me, it's not a narrative really. It's not, they do start from pictures of things. They'll start like a house, or they'll be a movie cover, or anything that has a good composition, because I'm just very like design and compositionally oriented. So it's really just like a play on color and shape and form, and how the colors push against each other and inhabit the space. So for me, that's what it's all about. There's nothing in it. It's not supposed to be a picture of something, and that's like the most important thing that I can stress to people that are looking at my work, is that.
Right, look at the light, look at the color, look at the composition of it and how it's laid out. That's what I'm working in. So what does painting do for you on an emotional level? You talked about, oh my gosh, I stopped painting for a month. Like 1 month off was just the hugest thing in the world.
It was pretty terrible.
Like, oh my gosh, 1 whole month.
Well, painting for me, I don't want to say that it's therapy, because it's not. That's not why I do it. I do it for different reasons. One, because it's work. It's my job to make art. Right. And so I do treat it like that as much as possible. But it also gives me this journey. It's amazing looking back at the things that I've made in my personal journey. And once I was able to find a way to put like my struggles with epilepsy into my art, was just a huge breakthrough. So it gave me, I'm so lucky.
Paint through it.
Yes, I'm so lucky to have an outlet where I can take what's going on in my life and put it into something else. And not everybody has that, and that's
true.
Unfortunate.
Now, has it been difficult for you? As you say, art is your job, and a lot of the artists from all the genres that come up here and talk to me say that it's difficult finding a balance between having to make art to pay bills, having to make art on demand, and then also having it still be personal, be spontaneous, be what you're passionate about. How do you basically make art on command through the fellowship, through creating certain pieces for specific exhibits, through working with Parliament and having to deal with the business side, but still keep it fresh and genuine and personal?
Well, that's the question of the ages. I was actually just having this conversation with a college student this morning. And that's what I told her. It's the question of the ages. But I just don't worry about what other people think, for the most part. I don't, and probably will not in my life, rely on the sale of my artwork to support myself. There's a couple of different routes you can go. You can go the route of making things that people like so that you can sell it. And I have friends that do that. That's awesome. They do say that it's eating their soul, and that's unfortunate. So maybe they won't be doing that forever. But I am much on the other side, where I don't make it for people. I specifically make it for myself, and I show it, and if people like it, then that's fine. And I'll work, less interesting jobs to be able to support myself while I do it. I have like 6 different jobs. So, and I do all of those things
You are everywhere.
too. And that helps, because then I know people. Networking is the greatest. I tell people all the time, the greatest thing I ever did was work at Starbucks. Because I met so many people. I met my first collector there, and she's bought like 5 of my paintings. Wow. People come out and see me. They recognize me on the street still, just from serving them at Starbucks for a year and a half. And they've become patrons now. It's wonderful.
Nice. So what advice, if you had to give advice to a young artist that is coming up and that wants to figure out how they can at least be sustainable, how they can make art, get their art out there, and be you, that wants to be you when they grow up, someone who's just out of college and living as basically a full-time artist?
I think it's all about networking and attitude. And obviously the quality of your art, you can't.
Right. You gotta rock first.
Yeah, you have to be good. And
once you're awesome, then
yes, exactly.
Then network.
Yes, because it's just, I come from some very genuine teachers. My professors are the greatest people that I know. And they have taught me to be genuine in what I'm doing and never compromise my values of my art. And I think that's the way to do it. And if you stick to your values and you stick to, well, I'm going to paint for me and I'm not going to give into the commercial side of it, then other people see that, and you start meeting other gallery directors, and you start meeting people just by going and immersing yourself in the scene. That's the best thing you can do. Volunteering at York Arts did wonderful things for me in my life.
Awesome.
So it's getting yourself out there, volunteering, being a good person, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Well, I'm inspired.
I'm glad.
And I'm super glad that you came down and talked to us today, and that you shared your art, which is just gorgeous. So people definitely need to make sure that they get over to the Parliament, and that they get over to Market View Arts.
For sure.
And that they check it out.
Yes.
And go to Rita-King.com.
Woo! Oh. Thank you. Thank you for the shout.
Yeah. Our video clip of the week actually comes from one of the station's interns, Dakota Keener. But it turns out he is completely cool, not just for his technical skill, but this boy is a bad skateboarder. And not only that, he's also a clothing designer who is getting his own clothing line started, E-Mark Clothing. Now, they're still getting some of their pieces together, but the idea behind the clothing designs is that it is by skateboarders for skateboarders. Check out this footage. We're here with Dakota. Okay, this is not exactly a typical hobby for most high school students. How did you decide, oh, forget sitting around watching TV and playing PlayStation, I'm gonna be skateboarding, taking videos of skateboarding, and then design a clothing line to go along with skateboarding?
Well, it all started with my dad. He introduced skateboarding to me because he skated ever since he was little.
Oh, for real? You're a legacy skateboarder.
Yeah, he still skates too, to this
What?
day.
For real?
Yep.
So who's better? Be honest.
I guess me. But,
so when did you start skateboarding?
when I, like, 3rd grade. So it's been a couple of years. So
Nice, nice. And then the clothing line.
the clothing line came kind of recently, but it's just a little more random. But it's,
So what's the need for clothing for skateboarding? It's just because it's part of the lifestyle.
yeah, it gives you, not everybody wears it. So it's like, you feel, I don't know, original, I guess.
Nice. You wanted to stand out.
Yeah.
And now, what school do you go to?
I go to Dallas Town.
Everybody? Dallas Town. And the people at school, they know about your skateboard king alter ego?
A little bit right now. It's still not too many people.
You're
but
still slightly undercover
Yeah.
with being the skate god.
Yep.
The videos are sick though. Have you ever competed?
Once, like 2 or 3 years ago, I entered my first contest and didn't place, but
Goodness, you're just getting started.
yeah,
So do you want to keep doing this? Do you plan to go more into the clothing line aspect? Do you want to keep skating? Where do you see Dakota going?
I definitely want to film either skateboarding or just film in general, but the clothing, if it goes anywhere, then that'd be great, but if not,
It's about the love of the skating is the primary thing for you, and you like filming the skating, the motion of it, the angles of it. And the films are sick, and you have your own YouTube channel with your skate videos, correct?
Yep.
Which is?
YouTube, Every Day I Skate.
Every Day I Skate, and people can look that up and they can see all kinds of videos of the skating. And you also film some other people as well,
a bunch of friends, whoever comes to the skate park, meet new people, whoever.
The skate park, and you're skating down at the skate park down by the ice rink and all that, right in the heart of York City, so people can come check you out, right?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's all local.
Homegrown skating.
Yep.
Well, I think it's pretty freaking awesome.
Thanks.
So I'm looking forward to my E-Mark clothing t-shirt. I'm not, quite ready to get on the skates yet, but maybe you can give me some pointers.
Teach
You gave me some pointers.
You.
That's what's up. I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you for coming on, Dakota.
Yep.
Spork. I love its deliberate schizophrenia, its mutant cuteness, its proud disregard of its own redundancy, as if the other utensils were somehow confined to a single food geometry. I love its spine and tines, its silly bravery, how it seems convinced in a human kind of way that it is one of those fine, rare things that can choose its uses. Shell. The scallop shell is fuchsia or magenta, a brilliant color more often seen in the orchids of O'Keeffe. It sits, ridged, coin glistening on the morning sand. I look closer. Its left edge is cracked away, which I suppose is why those people walking ahead of me chose to leave it there. I reach down for it, place it inside my t-shirt pocket with the consideration of one who is also not quite whole and knows it. One willow. The day comes down to the word relinquish and an elegant rain. Low swags of cloud seep odd light that's yellow-green and ineffectual, like a secret someone forgot to tell. This season hurts me with its monkish snails and unfaithful weather, its mourning doves' single-threaded song. The wind is made of disappearance, and the porch swing's emptiness is more precise than mine. It's had more practice. One by one, sadnesses take on the swell of tulips, the edges of streams, structures of wings, all of which open me, leave me ajar. Yes, I have that sort of heart. I need to stop stopping myself from thinking in words like peridot, except that the geisha movements of One Willow make me cry for all the reasons that they should. One Hue, a biography. It was a necessary blue, a color of immensity and the souls of bells, something cloudless, something quivering, color of flute notes crossing open window moonlight. It began with winter silence and bird shadows. It sat under bridges with the fleeting water. It loved empty wells, repeatedly told the wind where it lived among the stones. Hours and hours slipped past its hands. Then, one day and suddenly, it was not able. Then the choices began. It hesitated, deepened. It turned restless. It grew in a certain wildness, a thicket of wings, grew until it became everything that rains or falls or flies off. A yesterday of squandered violets, their tenderness, even the simple truths of their drenched names. Postcard from the ruins. Dear M. Now, late afternoon in July's glazed air sulks in the gutters. The Japanese beetles have returned, all mouth and iridescence. The rose's leaves now skeletal, the only ruins I traveled to. When has beauty ever been left alone? What is poignancy if not the wounded sense of the heirlooms, the Rosa Mundi, the Rosa Damask? I'm a saturation left to wander, the yard's operatic light. That last summer, you said swarm is a word that sounds made of hum and flight. You said that heat should accomplish certain things like passion. that demise should amount to something other than more demise. And suddenly, the past evaporates from it all. The open windows and insects declaring themselves all over the dusk. Their sounds of precision and life rich with summer, the veins of leaves. If you listen well, they are a wanting, a need, a wideness, a crossing. You can forget again and again the oak-like weight of your secrets, your calendars of night-long watching, the injuries that come undone. You can listen your way to an opening, to something like love, but deeper, more carefully prepared, something going forward that allows your following, like honeysuckle any place the mind imagines. You have this offering, this loosening, this intimate veil of sound, the wind-clung branches. You have the blades of grass, all the blades of grass, all their lives touching.
We're here with poet Melissa Carl. Wow. You are hugely prolific. I mean, you cover just every topic under the sun when you write, which I love. But what I also love about you is that when you hear your poetry, you pull inspiration not just from the diary, not just from the confessional, but I mean, a spork, you know, the porch swing outside the house. So how is it that you look at the world and choose what it is that you're going to write on next?
I don't know that there's any choice involved. It's I guess it's a process of being observant. And poets, if that's not a natural inclination of yours, then you have to acquire it. A lot of reading, a lot of observing, and a lot of thinking about your thinking. And journaling is helpful because sometimes you get these random thoughts and they disappear unless you put them down. True. So you might, like for example, the spork, I just thought about how it's not a spoon, it's not a fork, and if it could think, what would it think about itself?
Would it have an identity crisis?
Well, yes, what's its point? That kind of thing, so yeah.
Okay, so now tell us the Melissa Carl evolution. How did you actually get started writing poetry? What made you pick that pen up, and then what made you start sharing it and taking it to the next level?
It was a pretty long process. It's not one that started, though, when I was in elementary school. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't Sylvia Plath, who published her first poem at age 8 in the local newspaper or anything like that. No, I really didn't start even reading contemporary poetry until I was an undergraduate. In high school, I had the usual study the classics poetry experience, and I kind of thought that that's what poetry was and that's what it was about. And then when I went to college, in the college bookstore, there were some volumes of things by Marge Piercy and Erica Jong and a number of other people.
Nice.
And I just picked those books up and I started reading and realized that poetry was more than what my experience in high school was, and contemporary poetry was very different. And I read a lot of it before I got to the point where I sort of, I guess, got jealous. And
I want to have the fun they're having.
Yes, exactly. Like, I want to do that. So I just started and practiced, and I guess you could even say informally apprenticed myself to, like, I would read books and then try to figure out how did they construct that poem and why did they do it that way, and just experimented with things until I found, I guess, what you would call what I was comfortable doing with my thoughts and my writing.
Now, you do a lot of experimental things with your writing. Like, one of my favorite pieces that I got to hear you read months ago was a poem composed of Facebook statuses, which
names
was
hidden to protect.
Right, exactly. Found poetry, actually from the Facebook feed. So do you find these just different games and different ways to spark your creativity, or it's just, you know, do you deliberately seek them out, or you just happen to see the poetry in the things around you, like you were saying about being a natural observer as a poet?
I think it's a blend of all of the above. Not that it's a multiple choice question, but
I choose all of them.
Yes, exactly. I think at first I was looking at the work of other people, and then I started taking some classes and workshops with people, and they, of course, did the whole writing exercise and made you write a sonnet and made you write a sestina and made you write a villanelle and a lot of the forms and things like that. But I also got to see other kinds of poetry, like the found poetry, centos, and a lot of those other forms as well. And I like to experiment with things and do everything like at least once. Right. So I can say, okay, that was fun, that was not fun, or I want to try that again or not, or oh, that went well, or oh, I want to do that better, or no, I didn't like that at all, and I didn't do it well, and I don't want to do it better, I don't want to do it again at all. So,
I did not like that.
Yes, I did not like that.
Nice. So now how do you feel about most forms? Do you tend to still write in forms, or is that more of a writing exercise for you, a skill builder?
I really tend to shy away from what you would call the formal forms, the formal poetry, the sonnets and the sestina. And I made that as a choice. Just like Picasso could draw very realistically and very accurately, but made the choice not to. So I wanted to be able to say, yes, I can do it, but if I do it, I'm choosing to do it not because I can't, but because I'm not inclined to, or because I don't prefer to write that way. I would guess you could say I wanted to give myself all the options that I could have as a writer at my disposal, and then pick and choose what best suited me. So I tend to write a lot of free verse, and I've been doing a lot with the found poetry lately for a lot of different reasons. And I also have another project that I've sort of put on the burner for a moment. It's like a series of postcard poems, and the one of them I read just now, the Dear M poem. Right. They're all 10 lines. They could fit on a postcard. Nice. And they all have a different thematic bent, in the sense that they're cross seasons and have different points of view and things like that. But they're all sort of addressed to this, I don't want to say a muse, that's not quite right, and it's a bit cliche, but
can't have that then.
It's I guess what you would call source of inspiration, although I don't view it necessarily as a muse. It's almost like a schizophrenic, going back to my spork again, a schizophrenic hybrid internal-external creature, like kind of this blend of outside influence and my own internal process that come together to make things.
So now, do you use tricks like this? Because you are a high school teacher and you work with honors classes and some of the very best and brightest and most challenging of the high school writers in West York. So how do you make poetry cool for them? Did you learn some of these games because you have to keep them intrigued?
Well, first of all, I don't teach English, ironically enough. I teach social studies and history and world cultures. So that's something that people often are like, oh, well, because I'm a teacher, they assume I must teach English. Right. Well, because I write poetry, and then I must obviously be teaching that. I have done independent studies and writing workshops with some of the gifted students who are interested in poetry. Right. I don't force people to like what I like, or sit down and force them to write. But students who are interested, I basically talk to them. Usually I look at the work they've done so far, if they have any. I ask them how they view their work and their process and what they like about it or what they think they could do better. And I guess most of it is trying to say, they're already interested, so it's just a matter of having them explore some different options that maybe they didn't consider, and also to get them to understand that they are talented and that they can do it. They just need to spread their wings a little bit. They need to try some different things and encourage them. Yeah, and so a lot of times teaching them a different technique, they sort of forget about the self-consciousness of expression and start focusing on the process, and that kind of helps with the let go.
So sometimes working in the form or with the prompt or the process can take you out of your head when you need to get there if you're having trouble working through a topic.
One of the things that I did with some of my independent study students that worked in poetry was I had them study the work of like 4 or 5 very different poets, like W.S. Merwin, who writes in a very fragmented, punctuation is optional kind of a way. The Billy Collins sort of dry humor, very straightforward, kind of perception there. Usually a poet that has a more lyrical bent, and maybe a Jane Hirschfield or someone like that. And I tell them to write X number of poems imitating the voice of those other people. And what's interesting, they don't really understand why I'm doing it at first, and they think it's silly or why are we copying other people? But when they're trying to imitate someone else, they let go of their self-consciousness. They forget that they're just concentrating on the imitation part, and all of a sudden stuff sometimes breaks loose that they didn't know they had inside them, because they weren't being so worried about what am I saying, because they felt like they were trying to say something the way someone else would say it, but then they comes out in this weird blend of that other voice and their own.
Wow. So now tell me about the Pulitzer Project that you have going on, because that's a whole nother set of voices.
Yes, it definitely is. Well, the Pulitzer Remix Project, since I had started experimenting with some found poetry, I had sent some work to the Found Poetry Review. And in terms of found poetry, it literally is what it sounds like. You take something that's typically not in poetic form or is not poetry. It still has textual origin, but it's not poetry. And then you reassemble it, you collage it. It would be like the literary equivalent of collage, where you cut apart the bits and pieces and then rearrange them and reassemble them into a poem. And it's considered fair use. It's not considered plagiarism, especially if you're applying the images and the words in a different way. Or if you're taking a sentence that's not necessarily really unique, like a phrase like "let's go." Well, you see that.
I've got a great poem that was made out of rearranging the words from a Sears snowblower ad.
Yes, there you go.
And it came out great.
Yes,
and was about women's relationships when it was done.
And that's what you need to do with the found poetry. You need to take it in another angle and go off on a whole other subject matter. So the Found Poetry Review is about the only journal that I know that will publish found poetry. A lot of editors get funny about people using other people's words, and they're kind of gun shy, but the people who found the Found Poetry Review are very much in love with the form and think it has great potential. So they sent out an invitation a couple months ago to poets who had submitted work to their magazine or journal before, and also I assume people that they knew personally and had contacts with. But they sent out invitations. And the contest or the point is that, there's a list of 85 Pulitzer Prize winning works of fiction, and each poet was given an assigned book to work with for the entire month of April. So our goal is to write a poem every single day using nothing but what's in the book that you have. So if you need a word and it's not in the book, that's just too darn bad.
So what is your book?
My book is The Killer Angels by Michael Shara, which was interesting. And it wasn't my first choice, but it's working out nicely. It's a book I like, so it's okay, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to get to read some of that work. And people need to definitely go and find you on Facebook and track you down so that they can get to read some of it too.
I would encourage people to go check out the website for Pulitzer Remix, because there are 85 incredibly talented people writing from all these different books. So if you have a book that you loved that changed your life, that you read in high school, To Kill a Mockingbird and The Shipping, whatever it was, there are poets writing from it, refashioning it, and there's just some really awesome work there. I look forward to continuing to read it, because right now I'm focusing on writing it. I've read some, but obviously not as much as I would like to. So after the project's over, I'm going to go back and really, really read, hopefully as much of it as I can.
April's writing month, May can be reading month.
Yes, exactly.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing some of your work and some great tips, because I know I got inspired. I want to go home and write now. But thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you.
Yay. Thank you again for joining us on Culture in Maine for another fabulous episode. Make sure to come back and join us every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on Channel 18 or every Sunday at 3 p.m. Make sure to check us out too on Facebook at facebook.com/Culture in Maine, or follow us on Twitter at Culture in Maine. We've always got tons of great behind the scenes photos, fun facts, announcements about our new projects from different guests, where you can find them and what they're up to. It's just an awesome way to check us out. Make sure you also visit us at wrct.tv. Go to Channel 18. You can see us live streaming, or go to show profiles and you can catch up on all the latest stuff about the show and previous episodes. So thank you again to Melissa Carl with her wonderful poetry, Louis Woodyard with his wonderful music, and Dakota for joining us with his cool clothing line and skateboard videos, and the beautiful paintings of Rita King. Have a wonderful and blessed week, York County, and we'll see you next week right here on the corner of Culture in Maine.